Washington Capitals 3, Edmonton Oilers 2. Welcome back to the day after reaction. Myself was. We got Mr. Dan. And geez, Dan, that was a lot of shots in that game.
Sure was. Always good when the Oilers get 30 shots.
Yes.
Not so great when the Capitals get 50. I can't recall the last time I've seen 80 shots in a regulation game, but here we are.
It really took me back to that time Ben Scrivens got a 59 save shutout. And I was thinking after that first period, what was the most shots ever shot on an NHL goalie or an Oilers goalie in the first period? I couldn't find the stat, but
that's the one. That's the winner right there. It's Ben Scrivens, 59 saves. That's the franchise. Yeah. That's the franchise. I think it's happened a couple times at 59 shots, but yes, that's the franchise mark.
Yes. Stuart Skinner, the main storyline in that game was that he stopped 47 out of 50 shots faced. Unfortunately, the Oilers in front of him did not give him enough support, it feels.
Yeah, I mean, that's my number one key to this game was you wasted a gem of a game from Stuart Skinner. A team that, a fan base that's been clamoring for some goaltending efforts here, finally gets a stellar goaltending effort out of Stuart Skinner, kept them in the game the whole way through. They had no business even thinking of a comeback in that game, let alone being as close as they were up until the third period there. Just a frustrating outing for the team when you get that kind of an effort from Stuart Skinner.
Agreed. And one of my worries here now is that if we keep, piling these shots on Stuart Skinner, is he going to get worn out a bit going down the stretch in the season? Hopefully not, right? I mean, that's why you have a player like Jack Campbell.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And for a guy in Skinner, I mean, he's the AHL has high shot totals some nights. It's just the way it is as a goalie. Mm-hmm. I don't think it necessarily tax too much onto them for the rest of the season, but like you said, and you don't want to be wasting these good efforts out of these young guys.
The Oilers did open up the scoring in this game. Brett Kulak with a nice goal in the second period, just to a 5-hole from the team, and then Connor McDavid gets a second for Edmonton. Breakaway can't really stop him on that. However, the Washington Capitals still found a way to come back, win the game 3-2. Dan, you mentioned your first key of that game. What would you say was your second?
My second key, it just feels, and it feels like I'm doing this every time I do this show with you, it feels like effort is a real issue. And, my third note is about injuries, and you have to be able to overcome those with your effort. And so, it's just, this team has to know that when we have a second line of Nugent Hopkins, Janmark, and Yamamoto, that you're going to be going into some nights where you've got some work to do. The Washington Capitals, when we played the Washington Capitals last time, they didn't have TJ Oshie and John Carlson. You didn't hear them throwing out those excuses. And obviously our injuries are a little bit more impactful just because it's top to bottom, scanned right through the lineup. But it would have to just be that effort again and again. If not for Stuart Skinner, that game has started off 1 or 2-0 for Washington Capitals in the first period.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, you had Zach Hyman out of that lineup, who's a real driver on this team. Hopefully he's back soon. And now, you think about Evander Kane's and you look at the bottom six, McLeod, and Fogel, who are two players I thought in that bottom six were actually playing well throughout this year. The key number 3 from you.
It's just the injuries, and it's plain and simple. You have to overcome those injuries. Waz, you just did a great job of listing them all off, and that's a great excuse. And, that's fine to use that for game situations here and there, but we can't rest on this because they're not all coming back tomorrow. So this team has to overcome that. This team has to be better than just McDavid and Draisaitl. And, if those guys aren't getting it going on a nightly basis, the rest of the team has to step up and do something. And so, yes, it's great to have that injury explanation, but what are you going to do with it from there? This team has to respond better than they had against the Washington Capitals.
Now, the final question I'd like to have to you is that Oilers Twitter obviously has been on an uproar every time they lose. One name being thrown around is fire Jay Woodcroft now, which for me is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts on that.
When you're angry, you're looking for anybody to be angry at.
Yes.
And so in the moment, Jay Woodcroft benching of Evan Bouchard at the end of this game, I think, has people quite upset just because Evan Bouchard is a guy that we protect and a guy that we, as a fan base, do enjoy. He's going to do things that we don't necessarily agree with, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with Jay Woodcroft, and we're not changing the head coach. I feel like we have to keep having these conversations on this show and on Owen Radio, talking about waiving Jack Campbell and talking about sending down Dylan Holloway and talking about getting rid of Jay Woodcroft. Those are just not options that are available to us right now. Holloway can't go anywhere because our entire lineup is depleted. Jack Campbell isn't going anywhere. We just signed him as a free agent. So he's got to figure it out here, and he can do that. He can figure it out in the NHL. And then Jay Woodcroft is a fine head coach. I do have some questions about some of his usage, but that's me, and I'm not an NHL head coach,
right?
And neither is anybody on Twitter. So, at the end of the day, Jay Woodcroft has to be able to answer for the decisions that he makes, and some of them we don't agree with, and we're allowed to call those out. But I do not think that getting rid of Jay Woodcroft is the answer.
I think that might create more problems, if anything, right? And
1,000% within this organization, the turmoil that we've gone through, on the broadcast yesterday, they're going through the 17 and 18 goaltenders we've seen since Dwayne Rollison. Like it is a real thing for this organization to need some continuity. And that starts with the cornerstones of a goalie, of your rookies, and of your coach. And so, I mean, we've gone through the gambit of all three of those this week.
No, I totally agree. And it's one of those things that you fire the coach again. It's like, what kind of messages that send that to future candidates? It's like, oh, I don't want to go to Edmonton as soon as things go rough or I'm out. Like,
Jay Woodcroft can't stop 50 shots.
Yes.
That's just, it's important that, and also like Jay Woodcroft can't scream at the guys to get it going, or else he loses them from screaming. So it's a real tough job. I sit in a position where I'm able to be critical of it, but at the same time, I recognize that, Jay Woodcroft is a heck of a head coach, and he's got this.
Yeah. Thank you very much for tuning into the day after reaction here with my friend Dan and I. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next time. And let's go Oilers.